It is always some illusion that creates disillusion, especially in the young, for whom the only alternative to perfection is cynicism.
Toward synthetic derivatives, if you will, of the underlying asset, whether it's you're making fractional shares of Google stock or fractional shares of a Picasso. Once something becomes tokenized and you can move it around, if you can separate out the trading of those economic assets from moving the physical item or even touching the old-fashioned ledger, then the velocity of money, the liquidity just goes through the roof. And in my ultimate world of Star Trek future, everything is liquidly transferable into everything else by everyone, by anyone. And so we're on that path. Now, right now, the regulators are going to freak out when Binance or BitMEX or FTX is getting a little bit ahead of the curve and they're rocking and rolling, and they're worried that that Americans shouldn't be touching those because everyone in America is a widow and an orphan and doesn't know what they're getting into, and they're afraid they're not going to just lose their shirt, they're going to lose their pants. And so look, there is some noise in the market right now and rocks falling from the sky to crush people that are doing that too quickly. But to me, the future is here. It's liquid, it's fractionalized, it's tokenized, and just
liquidity and money velocity. Digitizing and tokenizing the world's assets is an update to our economy as well as the global economy. As nations allow these innovations to take place, those nations will have immense benefits that the old world will not be able to ignore. The traditional regulators are kicking and screaming because they do not have control. Crypto is global and decentralized. The regulators can control U.S. citizens but not the world. The world moving forward and leaving the U.S. behind will ultimately put pressure on Congress.
And so I think you're seeing kind of total buy-in now that we're going to rebuild a lot of financial infrastructure in blockchain-based systems. That plus, when the government tried to jam in crypto regulation, they actually were successful into the infrastructure bill. In one weekend, people heard the crypto community roar. Washington woke up and said, well, who are these people and why are they so passionate? There's 60 million American voters that love crypto. And so I think in literally one weekend, we became an industry in DC's eyes. And so you put it all together and we've had a huge shift. Now listen, prices will probably stabilize here a little bit and consolidate, right? You don't just keep going up forever. But my guess is fourth quarter, the S&P has a good quarter and crypto has a good quarter, right? Usually the winners of the year, when they're that much ahead, just drive on.
My friend Dominic from Do It Yourself Investing has an interesting theory that crypto will have a blow-off top at the end of this year due to following 4-year cycles. Today, Forbes wrote an article that talked about the XRP community and its impact on Washington, D.C.
More recently, several embarrassing videos of then SEC Commissioner Robert Jackson have surfaced showing him energetically asserting that not only that Hinman's speech was market guidance, but that all such guidance was intended by then Chairman Jay Clayton as regulatory clarity in place of slow-moving formal rulemaking. In another, Jackson insists that Clayton viewed all ecos as securities, throwing more scrutiny on Hinman's speech and the SEC's inaction with Ethereum's eco. Another video of 2019 conference shows Hinman's then deputy at the SEC, Amy Starr, and Coinbase counsel Dorothy DeWitt indicating that the exchange and the SEC have a framework on whether to list certain tokens or not based on their status as unregistered securities. It so happens that Coinbase listed XRP that same year. Taken together, the momentum of this crowdsourced activism hints at how excruciating a trial might be for the SEC and all the current and former officials entangled in the case. As the discovery phase draws to an end and the public backlash intensifies, one wonders why SEC Chairman Gary Gensler would continue risking his legacy on taking the Ripple case to trial. His fumbling defense of non-existent clarity has only widened the agency's credibility gap and hurt his image as a heretofore champion of crypto, who among other things, taught a course on the subject at MIT before taking the SEC chair role. Aside from the unprecedented restrictions on the SEC's power that a losing verdict will inflict, can Gensler effectively lead an agency that is provoking so much hostility from the very constituency it claims to be defending? With a razor-thin Democrat majority in Congress heading into the midterms, the Biden administration can ill afford turning against the crypto community.
I am certain that XRP's unknown status is what's preventing utility. This case is a blessing in disguise, and hopefully what comes from this is clarity for XRP.
Oh, I think it's anytime you try to do anything cross-regulator in the U.S., it's difficult. And now that with everything going on the COVID front, it's really hard to get people's attention. But there are cross-agency working groups already in existence, and I think enough people at enough regulators realize that that fintech is here to stay, right? Crypto is here to stay, and so there is a need to be a little more creative. The best way, I think, to get coordinated action is really through a congressional push, honestly, because they're the ones that oversee all of us. And so that can be a really helpful way to force action that might not otherwise have happened.
Crypto is here to stay. The infrastructure bill led to a huge backlash by the crypto community. The XRP community is exposing the SEC, and the financial news outlets like Forbes are picking up on the contradictions. It has always been my belief that XRP is going to be used on the macro scale, and this non-security clarity is necessary for the institutions to utilize XRP. The banks that run the world have a plan to reset to a next-gen financial system. The SEC and Congress intervening is part of this plan.
Just all of the things that you have to do around that to do it in a proper way. And I think that's a whole different topic we didn't touch on tonight. How do you regulate that in the future, cross-border? Does China regulate it? Does the U.S.? Is there other bodies that do so? Because there's a big gray area there that's going to emerge.
Crypto is global. The international regulations have been worked on for years by the G7 and G20. The FCC did not come out of left field to deliver this lawsuit. The rest of the world has declared XRP a currency, and the G7 and the U.S. included have already built a framework for crypto assets as well as international taxes by the OECD.
Most recently, I was working with colleagues in the G7 on cryptocurrencies and the issue of stable coins and of central bank digital currencies, which is a pretty hot topic these days.
The genie is out of the bottle. Crypto and blockchain is not going to be restricted because of the immense amount of benefits the tech has to offer. We're talking about a tech that can remove friction from the current system and lead the globe to economic prosperity. Those benefits are being experienced by nations that move first: Singapore, Switzerland, Japan. These nations are proving to the laggards. Powell keeps saying we don't have to be first, we have to get it right. The US is slower, but it's not an if, it's a when.
Listen, I think there's a recognition that things are going to be built on blockchains. And so it's Ethereum, it's Luna, it's Solana, it's what we call level 1 protocols. All have really jumped in the last 4 weeks. Matter of fact, Ethereum has lagged a lot of these other smaller protocols as people try to figure out in the long run, which one wins. Ethereum is certainly the leader, and I don't see it being dethroned, but it doesn't mean these other protocols won't have a piece of that fabric. And so it's hard to predict where prices go when you have a paradigm shift, right? The paradigm shift is, up until recently, people thought, what is this crypto stuff? And now you got Walmart, Visa,
Investors like Michael miss the forest for the trees. It's not about what crypto project partnered with another crypto project. The old world is making a shift to this paradigm, and the blockchains that the old world chooses are going to be the winners.
Yeah, surprisingly, actually, we are doing some of the NFT job for the governments because we help them to tokenize their government bonds and securities, right? It's the same as IBM stocks that Winston was mentioning. So we are not just working on Hyperledger Fabric, we're also collaborating with Consensus and also R3 because as he mentioned previously, it's not just about one protocol. We need to support multiple protocols and they can interoperate with each other, right?
Interoperability is key, and one chain will not rule them all. This is where the bridge asset is essential.
A couple of years, U.S. China focused a lot on 5G network competition, right? It's a Huawei versus U.S. efforts, let's say. But now, the new frontier is the blockchain network, right? Things like BSN essentially is taking Chinese blockchain going abroad, right? Getting into emerging markets first, and eventually may go to other countries as well. So I would say the digital currency, blockchain applications, and the blockchain networks are the three frontiers that U.S. China are competing relating to blockchain.
Blockchain is the next frontier of the China-U.S. tech Cold War. China's had a head start, and the plan is like the Belt and Road Initiative, where they go to developing nations and build out the nation's infrastructure, 5G internet, build buildings and roads. However, the buildings have microphones and the tech has spyware installed, as well as backdoors that send data directly back to mainland China. Now the developing nations owe China, so they get a free loan from China and tech that is riddled with spyware, but now they owe the money, and they pay with labor and natural resources, and they're enslaved by debt. The U.S. does something similar with the World Bank and the IMF. The BSN network and China CBDC is going to be a tool for China to collect financial data on developing nations and exploit those nations with that data. The CBDCs are going to be sent to the developing nations as loans, and the receiving tech by the developing nations will most likely be built on China's blockchains. The domestic economy's financial infrastructure built by China. This will lead China's blockchains to be dominant in these regions. Powell says we don't have to be first, but we certainly need to hurry. When people accept futility and the absurd as normal, the culture is decadent. Thank you for liking and subscribing. If you're interested in supporting my channel, I have a Patreon. The link is in the description below. If Patreon is not a fit for you, you can still support my channel by sharing this video. It helps me a great deal. Thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show.